Hey, welcome to Friends Win Ties. It's your boy Will J. Let's get into some deck brewing shenanigans. In this video, I'll be covering Yennett Cryptic Sovereign. Yennett came out a few years ago with the 2018 Commander Precon, but I think her card design is still fun and relevant today. So we're gonna try and do away with a bunch of her staples and instead update the build using more cards released circa 2021. As usual, we're not going for the most optimized or competitive way to build this deck. Instead, I'll be covering a real-life play-tested build focused on interaction, synergy, and hopefully a fun experience suitable for friends. So let's talk about this commander. Yennett is a 5-mana value 3/5 Sphinx with Flying, Vigilance, and Menace. Most notably, whenever Yennett attacks, you reveal the top card of your library, and if that card's mana value is odd, you may cast it without paying its mana cost. Otherwise, draw a card. So off the bat, she's a value engine in that she can cheat cards into play. Or at worst, draw you a card. Secondly, she's an Esper commander who cares about the combat step, so we will be going into the red and not just hanging back. Finally, Flying and Menace makes her difficult to block, meaning hopefully she will survive combat. Which is good because at 5 mana value, she's not going to be easy to cast over and over again. The overarching theme we're going to be building around is top and odd matters. This means we want to be able to control what's on top of our deck to cheat them into play, and because Yennett cares about odd cards, we're going to go mostly for odd costed cards. I'll be covering our usual sub-themes of ramp, removal, and draw, but also other sub-themes, namely manipulation, odd bombs, protection, and something we like to call UBP or utilities, bombs, and pets. I won't be going over the staples anymore because I don't think we need to go over Soul Ring, Arcane Signet, and all this, but at the end of the video, I'll show you guys deck stats from a real-life, play-tested, and pilot build so you can mix and match your staples as you see fit. With Esper, ramp is a tough thing to come by. This deck really needs its commander, and we want to make sure that we can cast Yennett by turn 3 or 4. That said, there's not much here outside of staples. You're going to want your 2-drop signets and whatnot, however, I would highlight 2 main things. One is Explorer Scope. It's a way to ramp into lands, or when equipped to Yennett, you can stack it such that you get a spell and a land off the top. Another thing to consider is bringing in 3 mana value mana rocks just because Yennett can cast them for free. They're not really sexy, but I find that Commander Sphere and Skyclave Relic are universally good options anyway. Note that for Skyclave Relic, you can still pay its kicker cost after casting it using Yennett's ability. Victory Chimes or Spectral Searchlight can be good too for when you need to buy a small political favor like not eating an early attacker. Removal is where Esper shines, and you're going to want a mix of counters, targeted removal, and wipes. It all depends on your budget on how premium of a removal suite you want to bring. However, some impactful ones that can be unique to Yennett would be Angel of Despair, which is a 7 mana value 5/5 flyer which destroys any permanent. Corrupted Conscience lets you take control of a creature as well as give it infect. So if an opponent plays a ridiculous beater, you can hopefully use that against them with a faster clock. If not, you can try and win through infect damage with Yennett. For board wipes though, I like to bring in incomplete or asymmetrical ones. Yennett is hard enough to cast as is, and so avoiding commander attacks would be ideal. Because this is generally a slow deck, it's susceptible to being overrun by go wide or token strategies. Cataclysmic Gearhulk, Promise of Loyalty, Slaughter the Strong, and Illuminate Primordial all thin the herd and make sure you keep Yennett around while doing it. Shadow's Verdict and Massacre are great against low curve or tokens, with Massacre likely being a free-to-play card. To note though, Massacre is going to be the only even costed card I'm going to be recommending with mana value greater than 2. Time Wipe lets you save Yennett while clearing the board, while In Garruk's Wake is a one-sided board wipe that can be cast for free with Yennett's ability. Quick aside, something new I want to try out in this channel is pointing out fun pet cards that I think could really add to the shenanigans of the deck. They'll likely be more interesting than they are powerful, but I will be marking them with this fruit seal of approval for shenanigans. So a card I want to highlight for this deck is Dimensional Breach. This clears the board of permanents, including lands. Granted, everyone's gonna get everything back eventually, so it's not like you're blasting everybody back to the Stone Age, but by choosing to get back Yennett first, hopefully you can swing in with her uncontested so you can get some free spells while everybody's busy bringing back their lands. All in all, I recommend bringing 3 to 5 counter spells, 2 to 4 targeted removal, and 7 to 9 board wipes. Yep, a lot of sweepers. For draw spells, you're going to want to be picky here. Low-cost burst draw spells are what you want to cast, and high-end burst draw spells are what you want for free. Night's Whisper and Faithful Mending are good choices at the 2-drop slot, and have a pretty good rate. Read the Bones and Secret Rendezvous provide a really good rate too at the 3-drop slot. Meanwhile, Rush of Knowledge is a good high-end mass card draw spell, and Seagate Restoration is one of the best MDFCs and can be played for free with Yennett's ability. And that's really it. Not a lot of card draw in this deck because instead, what we'll be going for is top deck manipulation. Manipulation or card selection can be a powerful thing. Granted, your deck is 100 cards, but still, don't underestimate how far multiple scries can take you. Crystal Ball and Index let us dig a little deeper to hopefully set us up for what we need. If you're starved for mana early on, you don't even need to wait for Yennett to play Index. Just dig 5 cards deep and put the land you need on top. Aqueous Form can give Yennett unblockable, and at the same time, if we stack it right, lets us scry 1 first before we trigger Yennett's ability. Varigoth is another stack trick, and its Boast ability lets us tutor for a card first before cheating it out afterwards with Yennett's ability. Ponder, Brainstorm, Telling Time, Scroll Rack, and Dream Cache all draws cards while at the same time manipulating what we have on top. I really like Brainstorm, Scroll Rack, and Dream Cache because they let us choose any cards from our hand and load those on top, which gives us more choices for cheating something into play. If you have the budget, obviously Sensei's Divining Top is a no-brainer, as are any of the instant speed tutors. But if you don't want to shell out a high budget for this deck, you can opt for some Planeswalkers as replacement. Jace Mirror Mage has a Scry 2 ability, Dakkon Shadow Slayer has a Surveil 2 ability, and Aminatu the Fate Shifter has a Draw 1, Put 1 back ability. A semi-controversial card that I go back and forth in putting in my deck is Penance. Penance lets you load a card on top at instant speed, but it also hoses Rakdos decks pretty hard. It can be the field bads because 1, Rakdos is already pretty bad at removing enchantments, and 2, you can shut a deck down completely, especially if they're looking to win via commander damage or something. Cards that I see getting played but I don't recommend are Soothsaying. It's never worked for me, it's mana intensive, and I don't know, the rate is just really bad. Don't believe the hype here. Portent is okay, but the problem is you actually draw the card next turn instead of now. And Consider and cards like it, like Opt, are just bad options because you only look at one card and then if it's good, you end up drawing the card anyway. So it doesn't really manipulate the deck, it just gives you one card. With the top of our deck set up to be manipulated, hopefully I've manipulated you enough to hit that like button and subscribe because hey, we're all friends here, right? Right? In any case, Yennett is now ready to cheat in some odd bombs into play. Historically, Eldrazi's have been popular here, particularly Void Winnower, which is just on flavor. But in the spirit of trying to update this with more recent cards, Sarah's Emissary, Caldra Complete, Triplicate Titan, and Phyrexian Triniform can give you the raw power to take down opponents instead of those Eldrazi's. Approach of the Second Sun was reprinted in Mystical Archives and is one of the win cons of this deck. It's possible to play this and dig deep enough with Scry effects to win on your next turn. Of course, it's not that consistent, so sometimes you end up just a card short as well. The inconsistency is built in so that each time the Second Sun is seen approaching, it's not an auto win. Staying with Mystical Archives though, Time Warp gives us an extra turn, as does Standard All-Star Alrund's Epiphany. Whether you hardcast these or not, they can give you an additional combat step to trigger Yennett's ability one more time. Debtor's Knell and Diluvian Primordial give us card advantage from our opponent's graveyards, while Curse of Unbinding and Dazzling Sphinx give us card advantage from their libraries. Lorcan Warlock Collector can give us steady card advantage too, as well as synergizing with some of our incomplete board wipes. These cards though are pretty dependent on what our opponents are running, which honestly, I kinda like because they self-regulate themselves that way. An old card that admittedly does not keep in theme with us trying to 2021-ize this build is Price of Knowledge. Sick art aside, it punishes greedy players for always having cards in hand, and it punishes decks with insane draw engines that tend to pull too far ahead. Another old pet card that I like is Mind's Dilation. Playing off the top of someone else's deck makes it seem hit or miss, but trust me, it's usually a hit. Odds are your opponents aren't manipulating their top deck either, so there's always that anticipation/dread as to what comes next off the top. Protection is what we need for Yennett to stick around long enough to be able to cheat these odd bombs into play. Boots and Greaves are great staples because they give haste and protection from targeted removal. However, Sephara's Sky's Blade or Shielded by Faith gives Yennett indestructible, and Malakir Rebirth brings her back, protecting her against board wipes, while Robe of Stars can face Yennett out to completely dodge anything thrown at her. For some protection against targeted removal, Giant's Omelette gives hexproof as long as the creature is untapped, which pairs nicely with Yennett's Vigilance, while Styron, Storm Tamer, and Alseid of Life's Bounty are both on-board protection creatures that can be played early on and then cashed in later. For UBP, we've covered a lot of bombs, so this will be a short list. A good support card for Yennett is Strionic Resonator, which doubles up her attack triggers. Crashing Drawbridge gives her haste, allowing her to swing as soon as she hits the board, hopefully on turn 4. Gin of Wishes is a good backup plan that still lets you play things at a discounted rate off the top of your deck and at instant speed to boot. Finally, Nile Spellbomb is just good graveyard hate. You can put in any graveyard hate card you want here, but I like this because it's a decent cantrip and, we should all try to pack at least one card for graveyard hate. I would have recommended Bolas Citadel and Lithoform Engine, but those are evenly costed and I don't want that in our Odd Matters deck. Oracle's Vault also lets you play things off the top, but even if this was oddly costed, in my experience, it's a pretty underwhelming card. Deck stats time! These are the stats of a real-life playtested and piloted build. For Yennett 2021, I have my deck clocking in at 10 ramp spells, 15 removal, 5 draw, 11 manipulation, 11 bombs, 8 protection, 40 BP, and 35 lands. And that's it for this video. I had fun taking an older commander and then updating her using newer cards. If you enjoyed this or this build style resonates with you in any way, please leave a like, leave a comment, and hit that subscribe button. If there are commanders you want to see, maybe some of the new ones being released or an old one you want to see updated with today's cards, let me know too, and I'll see if there's something I can cook up. Thanks for watching, and see ya, pals!